problem, obvious to viewers of this program and all of us on Earth One, as Nicole likes to call it, is that when you rally behind someone so clearly unhinged and dangerous, eventually he'll become emboldened to drop the act, to publicly spread and campaign on hate. Of course, we're talking about Donald Trump praising authoritarian leaders over the weekend, echoing Adolf Hitler and saying that immigrants are poisoning the blood of America. And we are all left with a choice: to speak out against the dangers of a possible second term with the wannabe dictator for a day, ex-president, or not. To no one's surprise, much of the Republican Party has remained silent about Trump's comments, and two Republicans stand out for their particularly appalling and over-the-top performative efforts to stand by him, apparently no matter what. During an interview, the Republican Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis insisted that Trump's comments, clear as day for most of us, weren't actually about immigrants because he didn't specifically use the word immigrants. Elise Stefanik, the number 4 House Republican, she called for a reckoning for anti-Semitism last week, and now she's biting her tongue, refusing to respond to Politico's repeated requests for comment. She instead posted this picture yesterday from her meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago, calling for patriots to unite behind him. Joining our conversation is the former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Obama, Ben Rhodes. Molly's also back with us, and we just have this in. NBC caught up with J.D. Vance, the senator from Ohio, who says that what he was really talking, it was clear that what he was talking about when he said poisoning the blood of the country is objectively and obviously true to anyone who looks at the statistics. It's about fentanyl overdoses. It's very clear that the blood of Americans is being poisoned by a drug epidemic. I mean, one doesn't need to be a linguist or a scientist or anything to know that he wasn't talking about the drug epidemic. And if you were talking about the drug epidemic, you could have just said that. You just throw that word in there. Well, the drug epidemic is poisoning the blood of our nation. That's not what he said.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's happening here is Trump is saying who he is out loud, and everybody knows that. And this isn't like a slip up here, or he happened to echo Hitler over here, or he happened to echo Stalin over here. We've heard about the need to get rid of vermin. We've heard about poisoning the blood of this country. Like, there's a huge body of commentary from Donald Trump that is touching the deepest chords of fascism,
right?
Which is us versus them, otherizing of people that are different, of immigrants, of people that are black and brown, of anybody that is not basically, you know, Donald Trump's idea of a real American,
right?
Is basically someone who supports Donald Trump. And so these Republicans contorting themselves, you know, I think by the time, tragically, we get to the election, they're not even be doing that anymore. I mean, he's going to run a campaign on this message.
Right.
Because that's who he is. That's what his movement is. And we have to confront that over the course of the next 11 months.
There was a remarkable thing that Rachel did last night in which she talked about the normalization of this. First of all, two things. One is fascists around the world, and by the way, Americans, have used this historically because, number one, it works.
Yeah.
And number two, if you do it enough and we don't talk about it, or our viewers who don't sometimes want to watch Donald Trump clips or see him on TV don't hear about it, we forget that this becomes normalized behavior. Mm-hmm. So what do you do, Molly? Because we have to let people know. We all have people in our circles who say, maybe they'll vote for Donald Trump. He didn't really break anything all that badly the first time around. He's telling you what he's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think history is our greatest teacher here, right? We know what happens when someone runs as an autocrat. And look, Trump got, you know, he was able to win this non-voting, these semi-voters by touching the fourth rail, you know, or the third rail of Republican politics, being an overt racist, you know, none of the winks and nods, just pure, unadulterated racism, which I think was sort of a throwback to George Wallace. And he did that, and he got his base very excited. And he knows now that he can only rely on that base, and that he needs those very occasional voters to come out. And so I think his rhetoric is getting even more white nationalist. I mean, this is not normal stuff for,
no.
I mean, this is not normal. They're really, in America, we haven't seen this kind of thing since the 50s.
Ben, you've spent a lot of time thinking about issues around the world. So the one thing it's important to realize is that this isn't even uniquely Donald Trump. It's not unique in history, nor is it unique around the world. It's being used in all sorts of countries. President Modi in India uses this kind of language. Putin uses it about the Ukrainians. How do you How do you get away from this? How do you campaign against it? Because most thinking Democrats in this country don't want to get involved in this discussion. They don't want to start talking about how immigrants are not poisoning the blood of the country because we don't think it's true. We don't think that that's stuff that you should be dealing with. But what do you do when he puts it right out there and you've got to confront it?
Look, I think you have to engage it. First of all, you're right. This is a trend that is global.
Yeah.
There's an autocratic trend of people who are ethno-nationalists getting elected and trying to transform democracies and autocracies. And to put this into perspective, it's not like Trump was a perfect guy the last time I ran in 2016, first time I ran in 2016. When he won in 2016, I was in the White House. And when his transition team, Chris Christie among them, came in the next day, you say, what's your plan? You know, they had no plan. They had no staff. They had no ideas. They didn't think they were going to win. And they literally then fired those people and put a new team together. The point is, this time they have a plan.
Right.
They know who they're going to hire. They know what they're going to do. They know how they're going to break things. They know how they're going to weaponize the Justice Department to go after people. And look, this is not necessarily all the issues that people care about, but the point that you have to make to people is if the democracy goes away,
right,
it becomes a corrupt oligarchy. Working people are the people who are going to pay the price for that.
Right.
He's going to enrich his cronies. He's going to take care of his people. That's not the working people that are even showing up at his rallies. And you have to be able to connect the outcomes that people are going to feel in their lives to what happens when democracy goes away.
Right.
Because it just becomes a corrupt club.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in America are recognizing the plain old democracy point, but for those who are not registering that, you know, your democracy may not feel like it's in danger. There's something else that's in danger here about everything else you care about. Thanks to both of you. Stick around for a second. We need to have another conversation.